What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel and welcome to my 2026 season preview for the Carolina Panthers. Now, if you like videos like this, I already have a few out for Arizona, Atlanta, Baltimore, and Buffalo. So if you want to check out those videos, they will be on my channel. And just a quick preview of how these videos have gone. I'm basically going to give a review of the 2025 season for both the offense and defense, look at the additions and losses for each side of the ball, as well as some storylines for each side of the ball. Then we'll go through the schedule and finally at the end get to a record prediction. Now, starting with the offense, this was a group that, although statistically you look at them, 27th in scoring, 26th in passing, 21st in turnovers, it doesn't look like they were a very good group, but this was the reason why this team made the playoffs last year. Even only at 8-9, they had a 1,000-yard receiver and they had a guy, Enrico Dowdle, who was a 1,000-yard rusher. I don't know the last time that Carolina had both of those at the same time. And it makes it even better because Ted McMillan was their first round pick. He was the offensive rookie of the year. He was an obvious upgrade at that wide receiver position that Bryce Young and this passing offense has been looking for a long time. In the offseason this year, the Carolina Panthers made some notable additions, especially to their offensive line. They drafted Monroe Freeling in the first round of this year's draft, and they signed Rasheed Walker, who really was their main addition in free agency. They did also sign Luke Fortner, who more than likely is going to be the starting center for this team in 2026. One of the main reasons that this team made the playoffs last year, Rico Dowdle, ended up leaving in free agency to the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 2-year deal. This team also lost Cade Mays to Detroit. He was the starting center the last couple of years. This team also is going to lose Andy Dalton, who they traded to Philadelphia for a 7th-round pick in 2027. And one of their swing tackles these last few years, Yosh Nijman, ended up retiring this offseason. Now, my storylines for the Carolina Panthers in 2026, the first one is going to be about Ikem Ekwonu, and it's going to kind of go in depth about how they went about their offseason offensively. There's a good chance that Ekwonu misses the entire season. He tore his patella tendon in the wild card round of 2025, and it makes sense why they drafted Monroe Freeling. It makes sense why they added Rasheed Walker, because their star left tackle, Ikem Ekwonu, might miss the entire year, and they needed to have a backup plan. I think it kind of threw their offseason in a whack, though, because they probably focused more on having a replacement for Ekwonu than maybe adding to the receiver room, and that's going to be my next storyline is, will they regret not drafting a receiver at 19? KC Concepcion was still available, Mekhi Lemon was still available, and yes, you drafted Ted McMillan last year, you drafted Xavier Legette a few years ago, but this is a year 4 for Bryce Young, which is my next storyline, where you really need to see not just improvement, you need to see that he's good. He's going to be the quarterback for the future. He already had the breakout year last year where he had career highs in all of his stats. But what does it really mean? This team still had a losing record. Even though they won the division, this team still had a losing record. And where can this team get better? I'm not necessarily sure they get better by drafting Monroe Freeling in the first round this year and him possibly not playing. I don't necessarily know if they get better by signing Rasheed Walker as their main deal, and he possibly isn't playing either. Moving over to the defense, this was a team that was really just middle of the pack when you look at their team statistics. They had a really good cornerback duo in J.C. Horn and Michael Jackson, two guys that had 4 and 5 interceptions to their name. Nick Scordon and Derek Brown both tied for the team lead with 5 sacks. Really nothing too impressive when you look at the defense as a whole last year. This was just a solid group that played well. The Carolina Panthers took a big swing on Philadelphia Eagles and former Miami Dolphins pass rusher Jalen Phillips. He signed a 4-year, $120 million deal. It's, I believe, if you look at the Carolina Panthers history when it's come to signing free agents, this is the biggest deal they've ever handed out to a non-quarterback. So it's a bit interesting. considering the production Jalen Phillips has had these last few years. However, I think the deal that more than makes up for it is signing Devin Lloyd. This is a guy who has just been an absolute ball hawk these last few years. 3-year, $42 million deal. I think that's almost a steal considering how much production he's had. And in the draft this year, their big addition is going to be Texas Tech defensive lineman Lee Hunter in the second round. Not too many losses of note for the Carolina Panthers in 2026. A'Shawn Robinson goes to Tampa Bay and DJ Wonnum goes to Detroit. But again, nothing too crazy. A'Shawn Robinson played a really good role for this team, both as an interior defensive lineman and as an edge rusher. And I think he will be a guy that's missed. But again, I think it's not going to be something that's detrimental to this roster. Now, my storylines for 2026, I already kind of mentioned it. The Jalen Phillips deal, it might end up being a massive overpay. This is a guy who essentially is going to be getting paid $30 million a year, and in his career, he doesn't have even 30 sacks. And when you look at the last 2 years, he has 6 sacks combined. Now, he did miss a bulk of 2024 and 2023 due to injury, but I'm not necessarily just going to be jumping out of my shoes to sign a guy to this type of deal and just, kind of gloss over it because, well, he got injured before. It's kind of, to me, a massive overpay and probably one of the worst deals I think we saw handed out this last offseason. Now, does Devin Lloyd help fix the rush defense, and does that maybe overcome the fact that this was a massive overpay? I think it could be. I think he could be a guy that really helps both this team against the run and in the passing game. Like I said, he's an ultimate ball hawk at that linebacker position. The next thing I think, and it kind of goes back to the Jalen Phillips deal, is who is the pass rusher that's going to become the guy? Nick Scorton and Derek Brown tied for the team lead last year, but it was only with 5 sacks. And they really didn't generate much pressure outside of actually bringing down the quarterback either. So you look at names like Nick Scorton, Derek Brown, other draft picks like Princely Umanmielen, but there's not really anybody else that you look at and you're like, that can be the guy going forward, not just for this year, but for the future as well. Hopefully Jalen Phillips is that, and hopefully I'm wrong that he's a massive overpay, but how I see it right now, I don't see somebody that's the guy in that pass rusher group. Looking at the schedule for the Carolina Panthers, it really gets tough after their week 5 bye, and I'm always going to be a big proponent that if you have a bye week that's anywhere before week 8 or 7 or anywhere after week 14 or 15, you're kind of set up for failure, in my opinion. And when you look at the schedule, I think you kind of understand what I'm saying. I mean, the toughest game, or the easiest game on their schedule is a week 13 matchup in Minnesota after that bye week. Other than that, you have both of your games against Tampa Bay. You have a game against Atlanta. You have a game against New Orleans and in New Orleans. I just think this is a really, and that's not even talking about their out of division matchups. They go to Green Bay, they host Seattle, they go to Pittsburgh, host Cincinnati, host Baltimore. Like, this is just a schedule that, you look back, this team won the division last year. They get to play the best division. They get to pay the division winners from last year. And I don't want to say that and be like, this is what they deserve, but this is just kind of how it goes in the NFL. You win your division, you play the other division winners, and you see what you got. And so it's for the tough schedule, and really, to me, not a much improved roster. I really think this team could bottom out in 2026. I could see a season like 5-12, even 4-13, and this team could possibly picking towards the top of the draft next year. And I really don't even think, even if everything goes well, even if Jalen Phillips is the star pass rusher that this team needs, even if Devin Lloyd completely fixes the rush defense, this team's still a fringe playoff contender. I don't think they're head and shoulders above Atlanta. I don't think they're head and shoulders above Tampa Bay. I don't even really think that they're that much better than New Orleans. New Orleans was just a couple games behind them last year, and New Orleans kind of had some bad luck. So I really just don't think Carolina has done enough to just take this division by the horns and win it again. I just really don't. That's going to be it for this video. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you check out my other videos I've already done talking about 2026 season previews, and I'll see you in the next video.